How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I am rejoined by my co-host, Drew Johnson. The Mavs are coming off a 143-133 barn burner win over the Golden State Warriors. If you tuned into our last pod, you heard me ramble about that one for about 30 minutes. It was unbelievable. Set records for three-point shooting. Clay hit 7 threes. It was fantastic. So the Mavs are back on track after losing that game to OKC. They get back in the win column. They're 17-9 now, and they have a pretty favorable stretch in their schedule coming up here before they get into their Christmas Day matchup and then go throughout the end of 2024. So things are looking up for the Mavs. They got back in the win column, a bounce back win, something we greatly wanted to see. PJ Washington was back, which typically means a win because they're 16-4 with him and only 1-5 without him.
Yep.
So this is a full-fledged trade pod, but since you weren't on last pod, I do have to get your quick thoughts on what you saw from the Mavs in Golden State in that last game because that was nuts.
Oh man, no, offensively it was an absolute clinic. Luka was outstanding. Clay was outstanding. Clay is always outstanding in the Bay, though, for whatever reason. I think you're always going to get a good game out of him whenever he goes back to San Francisco.
Motivated.
He's definitely motivated, and he also plays a different brand of defense that I noticed. He was a lot more aggressive on that end of the floor. I really enjoy watching Clay whenever we go back to Golden State because it's always interesting to see. He plays a little bit more fire than usual. You know, he's more of a laid back guy, but you can see the wheels turning whenever he's back at his old stomping ground.
He absolutely outplayed his buddy Steph in the clutch there.
Absolutely. But Steph tried to will him back. The reality is it was just outstanding shot making by both teams. What I would like to see a little bit more of is some sense of urgency on the defensive end, because whenever you're shooting like that, man, you ought to be able to just choke the life out of teams at that point.
Yeah.
People should not be able to keep up with you. And there were times in that game where we were up 20 points. So you really would like to see the defense step up in that scenario, but it was a fun game. No defense was played. Everyone was just shooting all over the place. So
well, look, and to the Mavs' credit, for whatever reason, every time they play the Warriors, Draymond Green thinks he's Steph Curry.
Yeah.
He hit 5 of 9 from deep, and then Lindy Waters hit 4 threes. And not just
I don't even know who that is. I've never heard of him before.
He used to be in OKC. I don't know. He's just a random guy. But even Lindy Waters, his 4 threes, like it wasn't even like normal role player threes. He was taking like superstar, like FU type threes.
Yeah.
And they were going in.
He impressed me. There was another guy. Oh God, I had him on the tip. Oh, Andrew Wiggins played well too. I mean, didn't he? How many did he have? He had like 28 or something like that. I thought I remember looking down.
Wiggins, he was also 5 of 9 from 3, just like Draymond, and he had 29 points.
Jesus Christ! I mean, he actually looked like the number 1 pick out there from so long ago. So
he's another guy that just tends to play better versus the Mavs. We saw it in that 2022 Western Conference Finals. That was like the peak of his career during that series.
Yeah, Wiggs has some go to him. It's just his main issue has always been his consistency, in my opinion. He's always just been so inconsistent, particularly as a shooter. So if he ever gets that figured out, I mean, he's got superstar potential. He absolutely has superstar athleticism. Let's be real.
Yeah.
But if he ever figured out his jumper and was a little more aggressive, he could really be something. But
it's kind of like the same issue with DeAndre Ayton. Tons of potential, tons of talent, but that motor, it has to be kickstarted a little bit every now and then, or most times.
And you can't teach motor, unfortunately.
Yeah,
it's just not there.
But despite all those Warriors players playing so well and hitting all those threes, and by the way, I did mention this on the last pod, but the Warriors became the first team in NBA history to make at least 27 threes in a game. and still lose that game. Every team in history that had done that beforehand was 11-0. So that just goes to show how good the Mavs are when they're firing on all cylinders. They hit 21 threes themselves. So,
and in key moments, they really were able to lock down in key moments defensively. I would just like to see more defensive consistency throughout a game so we aren't put in those situations.
Agree. Yeah. And look, we're going to get into some trade stuff now, but I do want to put a disclaimer before we get into this. The way the Mavs are playing and the depth that they currently have, and especially with what we've seen from Omax, since he started to get 10 to 15 minutes per game with Maxi Kleba out, there's no urgency for the Mavs to do anything right now. They're fine. But, Nico Harrison isn't one to be content with anything. He's always trying to figure out ways to improve the team. We've seen it. He's made a trade at every deadline since he's been general manager. So with that being said, we're going to look at 10 different trade ideas that we have put together. Now, obviously, it started as like 7 or 8, but I had to throw in a couple more toward the end because I got kind of carried away on the trade machine. So there's a couple of these you haven't even seen, DJ. So we're gonna go through them. We'll start with this first one here. So this is your first one.
Yeah.
That you came up with, and it addresses the backup 4 spot. Obviously, Rui Hachimura from the Los Angeles Lakers. You have the Mavs sending out Maxi, Jaden Hardy, and a 2nd-round pick. Now, I would probably do this, and I do think it's probably fair value, especially considering the the potential that Hardy has, and that he probably won't ever fully realize his potential in Dallas just because there's so many people at the same position as him. So, overall, I think this is a, fair trade, but the Lakers are so desperate. I don't know if they would do it.
Yeah, that's my thing. So I don't know that you get Rui out of LA without throwing a 1st-round pick at him. I think they've kind of come to the conclusion over in LA that, the whole LeBron show is kind of coming to an end after this year, and they're going to be in a rebuild mode. And so they're in an asset acquisition mode. So, this is what this is fair. I agree with you. I think this is fair. But realistically speaking, I think that if you exchange that 2nd-round pick for a 1st-round pick, I think then that moves the needle with them. But overall, I mean, they get, potentially a pretty decent player in Jaden Hardy. Maxi might even be able to give them some decent minutes for a couple of years. And then, of course, they would probably get, let's be realistic, Dalton, they probably have to get a 1st-round draft pick out of it. I don't see them accepting a second. I just don't.
Well, I mean, the Lakers in general, Rob Pelinka, I don't even think they've made a trade in like 2 years. I may be wrong about that, but I think I saw somebody say that like they haven't made a trade in nearly 2 years. So I don't know if that's just them trying to, fleece other people, or if that's other teams just not being willing to deal with the Lakers, which I could totally see being the case. Why would they want to help out LeBron and the Lakers? But yeah, I mean, look, Rui, he would be an excellent fit in Dallas.
Yes.
Especially if he's in that backup 4 spot. That'd be pretty cool. So
I love Rui in that role. And granted, I made this, I think, before Omax started getting all those minutes. And Omax, let's be clear, Omax has done a good job. Yeah. Omax has done a good job. But if we're going to trade people, let's look to plug up, the softest part of our roster right now.
Yep.
And the softest part of our roster is at the backup 4 spot. And I love Omax. I love what Omax is doing right now, but I have to see more of Omax doing that before I'm comfortable saying that we're solid at that point,
Well,
go ahead.
And not even really just the backup 4 spot, but like you want the backup 4 to be big enough and to be capable of getting rebounds. So if you have to go small, like these teams that have kind of minimized, some games, Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford, as good as they are, some teams can limit their impact,
Yep.
like Boston, for example. We saw that several times. So in that case, you want your backup four to be big enough and strong enough that you can move him into a small ball 5 role. And, that's something you can do with Hachimura.
Absolutely. And not only that, but he's also versatile enough to guard perimeter players in such a circumstance. So I love Rui's versatility. I think I've said that before on this pod. I think that he has a lot of untapped potential. I think that the way that you use him matters offensively. I think we saw that in this Olympics. I think that he can be a threat offensively. And I really love him at that backup 4. I really do. I think he would be solid in that role. And I think he'd be really solid on days that we don't have PJ and we still need that sort of enforcer at the 4. So now I love Rui in this role. I love this trade. I don't know that it happens without giving him a first round pick.
How sick would LeBron be if the Lakers made a trade that made the Mavs even more formidable?
Well, LeBron has to understand that there isn't a whole lot they can do right now to improve.
There's really not.
Situation. There really isn't. So LeBron also has to understand that he's coming to the end of the road in LA. And we said this way back whenever it was time for him to decide on whether or not he was going to return to LA or go elsewhere. The time of being able to contend for a championship in Los Angeles has passed.
Yes.
And now he's on his farewell tour. It's too bad he couldn't have had his farewell tour somewhere where he could have contended for a world championship.
And look, he took the bag, and you can't blame him. That is a lot of money, and the Lakers were willing to still pay him max money or near max money, despite his age and despite his play declining a little bit. So, more power to him, but we've said it for, more than a year now that if he wants to win, another championship, it's not going to be in LA. He's got to leave. He's got to go somewhere else. So we'll see. Maybe LeBron becomes the best buyout candidate signing that the Mavs have ever had in their history after the trade deadline, if the Lakers are still sinking. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Moving on. This next trade, and there's actually 2 of these because you and I both had Herb Jones as one of our options. Now, this is the one I went with, and I just added Javonte Green there for salary matching purposes. But I had Maxi Kleba, Omax Prosper, Jaden Hardy, and a first-round pick for Herb Jones and Javonte Green. And obviously the big thing with this one, because we've seen a lot of, fake Herb Jones trades on Mavs Twitter since the Mavs were listed as the betting favorites to get Herb Jones if he was traded. But, a lot of those trades, those fake trades we've seen have involved Daniel Gafford. And obviously, we would like to avoid that happening if possible. So this is one that works salary-wise. Maxi Kleba's a negative because of the 2 years left on his contract. But, you get Omax Prosper, who has shown some promise, as a two-way wing. You get Jaden Hardy. We know what he can do when he has enough minutes and he can fill it up scoring-wise. And then you get a first-round pick. All of those 3 things, in my opinion, should, nullify the negative part of having to take on Maxi's contract. So,
no, I think this is beyond fair. I think the first-round pick really is the cherry on top, so to speak. But you get, like you said, you get Jaden Hardy, who's going to come in and really probably put butts in the seats, honestly, because he's going to go out there. And if he doesn't put on an offensive showcase, he's at least going to be entertaining trying to do so. So, he would be fun in New Orleans. I think Omax is fair. As much as I'd hate to lose Omax, I could see Omax flourishing in New Orleans, garnering a more expanded role. But again, for me, it's all about that first round pick that really makes this beyond fair to me. In fact, I think we may be giving up a little too much in this regard, but the Pelicans are kind of in the same situation as the Lakers in that they're desperate. So
given that Herb is an all NBA type defender, and he's got 2 years remaining past this season, around that 13 million range, that's the only if he was on an expiring deal or just had 1 year left, or was making more money for that matter, it might, I probably wouldn't have added it in there, but I don't know. There's just something about getting somebody to pay Maxey $11 million for the rest of this season and next season. After what we've seen, it's just hard to imagine.
It's a huge ask, but as far as what Herb would mean for us, I mean, God, Herb's one of my dream signings for the Mavs, just because he checks off so many boxes for us. You get, like you said, an elite defender, one of the best defenders in the league right now, who can probably guard 1 through 5, honestly. And there aren't very many people you can say that about. He's one of the most versatile defenders that I've ever seen. And his offensive game gets better every year. It's not like he's, Tony Allen or Keith Bogans or something like that. Like this guy can go. He can play, right? And I think that he changes the Mavs outlook right away. I think you can quote me here, and I don't think it'll happen because I don't think we're going to get him. But if we get Herb Jones and we don't have to give up too terribly much in return, we are a lock to go back to the finals.
I agree.
Now, I think we are a lock to go back to the finals.
I agree.
I think it's just too much.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like, could you imagine a lineup that has Luka, Kyrie, PJ Washington, Najee Marshall, and Herb Jones? A small ball lineup with Luka, Kyrie, and just 3 hellish defenders.
That's the death lineup right there. And honestly, can you imagine, Luka, Kyrie, Clay, Herb at that 4, and then
Lively or Gafford.
I mean, just that lineup alone is scary. And then you're bringing Clay off the bench. And there's so many different lineups you could throw together that are all starting 5 caliber lineups, and that's really what differentiates championship caliber teams from others. Is they have flexibility in what they can put out there.
Yes.
Makes them very, very difficult to scout, very difficult to prepare for.
And as much as we've seen from Omax in these last several games, and I mean, look, I have all the belief in the world that Omax can turn into a high-quality, consistent role player for this Mavs team going forward. But no matter how good he looks in the regular season, he doesn't have as much experience as some of these other guys we're talking about the Mavs potentially trading for. And that can make a difference come playoff time. So, that's one reason why I would be willing, if I was the Mavs, to potentially part ways if the right deal presents itself. But moving into the Herb Jones stuff, this is yours, and this is a lot more simple, than mine. It's Maxi Kleba and a top 8 protected first round pick. I'm going to be honest with you, DJ. I like this one a lot better.
Yeah, for us, it ain't happening. But I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, this may have been the first one I threw together whenever I started playing with this thing. I was like, yeah, that works. But
just salary matching.
Yeah, look at that. The numbers match up. We're good. No, there's no way on God's green earth this ever happens. But if it does, we'd have to for my Star Wars people, we'd have to examine Nico Harrison for force sensitivity, because that's a Jedi mind trick.
Look, the Pels have done dumber things, in my opinion,
in
the past. And, Nico Harrison just kind of has a way of making things work, like turning Grant Williams and Seth Curry into PJ Washington.
Yeah, that didn't make sense either. So
and Rashawn Holmes into to Daniel Gafford. So, we're
gonna maybe I'm onto something here.
And what did those trades have in common? The Mavs had to attach a first round pick to make them work. So maybe this is the type of trade Nico looks for. It's like a player that's not really that desirable, but hey, we'll give you a first round pick, especially in this loaded 2025 draft. So,
it's not bad. And I think that Herb Jones is worth a pick out of this 2025 draft, if you want my honest opinion.
I agree.
So
if this happens, I'm going to, you'll never hear the end of it, and for good reason. So let's go, Nico.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, a more attainable backup 4, in my opinion, Dorian Finney-Smith. The guy that everybody came to know and love for several years in Dallas. They signed him as an undrafted free agent when he was like 23. So like when he was already older than Omax is now, is when they signed him, and he developed into a very good 3-and-D role player. And then he was in that trade for Kyrie Irving, and the Mavs had to rebuild their depth after that, and they're finally back to that point. But, now, you could potentially get him back. And, there's been reports and rumors that, the Nets, they were wanting 2 first-round picks for Dorian last season, I think was the rumors. And now I saw one report saying that, maybe the Nets have backed off of that, and they'll accept a pick and one promising player. I'm not even willing to give up a pick and a promising player. Like it'd have to be one or the other. And I'm not giving the Nets a first round pick for Dorian Smith just off of principle alone. Because you had to give up a first round pick along with him and Dinwiddie at the time to get Kyrie. So, I mean, a player you traded a pick with, I'm not trading Brooklyn another pick to get the same player back. Now, this is what I came up with. And if they were willing to take Maxey and then you get a much younger project version of Dorian Finney-Smith, so to speak, with more upside, in my opinion. I think Omax has more potential than Dorian did in his earlier years. So this is what I would be willing to trade for Dorian Finney-Smith. What do you think?
I think it's beyond fair. Again, how old is Dorian now?
31, I think.
Exactly. So, we're kind of in the latter part of our prime here. I consider somewhere between 28 and 32 to be most people's prime. And that may be a little generous. But, you've got a guy who is, coming to the end of his prime, will probably be out of it by next year. And you're going to trade him for, basically a younger version of himself for the most part.
He's 31, by the way. I just double checked. He will be, if the Mavs made it back to the NBA Finals, he'd be 32 by that point.
Exactly. So, if you're the Nets, you really got to understand value here. And as good as Dorian is, the long-term value of him just does not warrant a first-round draft pick. It just doesn't. But I'll tell you what we would give him is a former first-round draft pick. So,
yeah, exactly.
I think it's beyond fair.
And, I mean, again, a lot of these proposals are coming from a place where the Mavs just aren't desperate to make a move. I mean,
right.
It's like you're throwing stuff out there, and if something sticks, it sticks, but you're not, hurting yourself when you don't have to. So, these are the kind of things I would throw out there and just see what happens because, look, the Nets, they just traded Dennis Schroeder to the Golden State Warriors for a player that was injured in DeAnthony Melton. So, they're tanking. They want to get into the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, and trading Dorian would be a great way to do that, especially if you're trading him for Maxi Kleber and Omax Prosper. Now, I will say this, Dorian, he's averaging a career high 11 points per game, career high tying. He averaged that during the 2021-22 season in Dallas as well, but he's averaging 11 points per game in 28.9 minutes per game, and he's shooting 45% on 5.6 3-point attempts per game this season. Love that shooting percentage, but I mean, let's be honest, he would not be playing 29 minutes per game on this version of Dallas.
No.
On this Dallas roster. He'd probably play maybe 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. So,
yeah. No, he'd have a much reduced role also.
Which is fine. I mean, he's had those reduced roles before, but man, there's something about, especially since we've seen what Dorian can do in a playoff run, a deep playoff run back in 2022, hit so many big shots in that Phoenix series. And, he just, especially from the corner, he is whatever he shoots overall from three, you can guarantee it's better from the corners.
Yeah.
Now watch somebody go look that up and it be less than 45% this year. But typically,
That's the eye test, damn it.
Typically, Dorian shoots better from the corners. He's a very good role player, and the Mavs, would be happy to have him back for the right price. So that's one we're keeping in our back pocket there. Here's another one I came up with, backup for Larry Nance.
I like that.
The Hawks have been playing a lot better than they were earlier this season when I first thought about this. But, he's an expiring contract. So, unless they're going to extend him, they could potentially lose him for nothing.
Yeah.
And, you could get Maxi Kleber. Maybe you squeeze some kind of value out of him. He brings you some similar things that Larry Nance Jr. does, but he's more injury prone, obviously. But you're not going to lose Maxi for nothing either. You'd have another year, to try to figure something out with him. And then you get Jaden Hardy to throw into the mix, have some more scoring, whether you try to put him in the starting lineup, which would be hilarious with him and Trae Young. But more than likely you bring him off the bench and, give him more of an opportunity than what he would have in Dallas. So this is one I like, good pick and roll guy and Larry Nance, but he's not like one of those real super tall lumbering bigs. Like he's real athletic and he's pretty versatile too. So, I kind of put him in the same category as Maxi because he hasn't been, I wouldn't say he's been great as of late, but he's still a better option as backup four than it is to have Maxi out there. And honestly, like you said earlier, because we've been sitting on some of these trade proposals for like a week plus now. I honestly don't know if I would do this one now, given how Omax is playing.
Yeah.
Because, you make this trade and it gives Jason Kidd a reason to, not play Omax because you have another veteran coming in there who's younger than Maxi and, it can take away the opportunity. So I don't know. I would do this trade, but with the way Omax is playing, I'm second guessing it now. So.
Yeah, I don't know that Larry Nance is that much better. It's so much better than Omax that you get rid of an asset and Jaden Hardy to get him. And let's be real, Jaden Hardy is an asset.
Yeah, no matter what you think about Jaden Hardy, having a 3-year contract making I think that number on the trade machine, I think that's for this year, but I think he's making like $4 million a year for the next 3 years after this. So,
yeah,
pretty team-friendly contract there.
Nothing. And it's for a guy who can explode on any night. So, there's value there. I don't know. And Larry Nance also is kind of limited offensively. So, yeah. I don't know that he beats out Omax realistically. I really don't. I don't know that he beats out Omax for that spot. And, if you're giving up Hardy for a backup to your backup, that's when things get a little hairy. I don't know that I'd do this.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I don't like this one. So
yeah,
we're going to move on to trade number 6.
Oh, here's my shit show.
Yeah.
Here we go.
This one was so extensive that I had to add Mavs Cat to the graphic because
this hurt my head. I was sitting there on the couch putting this together for a good 30 to 45 minutes. I'm going to blow some people's minds with this, and it may not even be feasible.
So let's talk through this one real quick.
Yeah, it's going to take a little while.
Yeah. Let's set the table for people here. So,
all right. So, and people may disagree with me, but I think in this scenario, this is really something where everyone can benefit. So obviously the Mavs, they get Kevon Looney, who is one of the highest rebound ratings going. He doesn't play that many minutes, but he's like, I want to say top 30 in rebounds, which is insane when you look at it. And it's defensive rebounding too. And what do we suck at sometimes, Dalton? What pisses me off?
Losing the rebound battle.
Exactly. Nothing pisses me off more. Then we also get Jonathan Kuminga, who I've expressed, to you how much I would love to see in a Mavs uniform.
And before you continue this, for those not watching the YouTube video, this is a 3-way trade between the Mavs, Warriors, and Heat. So
Yeah.
just keep that in mind when you hear these names. But anyway, continue.
So Kuminga, he checks a lot of the same boxes that Rui Hachimura would check for us. But I also think that he has more upside than Rui. I also think that he's probably a better player than Rui is right now. Yeah, no, he's outstanding. There's also, I mean, how old is Kuminga right now? He's what, 22?
22,
Yeah,
I think.
exactly.
Maybe 23.
So, he's just going to continue to get better, and going against someone like PJ every day.
22. Yeah, he just turned 22 in October.
Yeah. So, and he's supposed to be he's listed at 6'9" or 6'8" or whatever, but I've seen reports where he's like over 7 feet tall, and just looking at him, I'd believe it. I think it's a Kevin Durant, height reporting situation. No, big dude, tremendous upside, really fluid athlete, really skilled guy. Can't say enough about him. And Josh Richardson is Josh Richardson. He was put there purely for salary issues. So let's move on to the Heat. So the Heat would be getting Andrew Wiggins from Golden State, and it isn't like the Heat are getting fleeced out of Jimmy Butler. Okay, they're getting some players who I think would thrive under Spoelstra. I think Wiggins would be great under Spoelstra because let's be real, Spoelstra does a really good job with low ego, high effort guys. And that's got Andrew Wiggins written all over it. Let's be honest.
Well, let's see. The high effort part is hit or miss sometimes.
I think he can get it out of him.
Let me put it this way. It would either be the best thing ever for his career, or we might never hear from him again, given how heat culture is.
That's true. That's also true. So, I mean, it'll be a defining moment for him. But how many of those do we get throughout our career, right? You have a chance to be the guy again.
Looking at what you've put in this 3-way trade with the Heat getting back here, I mean, if you're not willing to pay Jimmy Butler what he wants going forward, and the Warriors are, then, I think this is a better haul than, what you could get than potentially losing him for nothing down the road. So
right. Exactly. I mean, I think if things go right, Wiggins would be a great addition for Miami. Then they're going to get Kleber, which, please God, take Kleber. Moving on. They get Gary Payton Jr., who, in my opinion, was made for Miami. I think he is the exact type of player that would thrive under Spoelstra. And then you get Quentin Grimes, who I would hate to lose, but we're going to get two people that kind of bulk up an issue that we've got right now. And also notice, that if you go look at our roster, we have a stable full of guards. We can afford to trade one of our guards. We can, especially if it means bolstering our front court, which at times, due to injuries or fouls or whatever, can appear kind of bare sometimes. So, you got to do what you got to do. And then, of course, the Warriors get their guy in Jimmy Butler, and they get his potential replacement down the road in Jaden Hardy. And let's be real, the Warriors, they're going all in right now on Steph's final years and Draymond's final years. They're trying to get as much out of this group as they possibly can. So I think that it behooves them to take a swing at a Jimmy Butler-like player. And there's actually been reports of there being mutual interest between the two, despite what his manager said about Shams being full of crap. I don't know what to believe on that. But anyway.
And look, Jimmy is also interested in the Mavs too, but we've talked about this. I mean,
I'm not interested in that. I'm just
not at $48.7 million. I mean, it's just not feasible. Now, I have said if we get to this next offseason, and he opts out of the final year of his contract and becomes an unrestricted free agent and wants to do like a sign and trade type deal, like the Mavs did to get Clay. Clay Thompson's making what, $16 million a year or something like that. You know, if you want to do something like that in the offseason, fine. But the Mavs trading for Jimmy Butler is not happening this season. So,
No.
you know. And look, one I can already see one hit back or whatever you want to call it to this trade. Some people will be like, well, I mean, why do the Mavs have to be a third team? Why can't, the Warriors just trade with Miami straight up and send Andrew Wiggins, Kuminga, Looney, and Peyton just all to Miami? I mean, do you really want to send 4 players for one aging player that's making nearly $50 million? Like, then your depth is really shot. Like,
exactly. And you bring more in. You bring, like you said, your depth is shot. You bring more in doing this.
yeah.
And, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys. I haven't really explored all the options of every NBA team there is, but I think the Mavs have something to offer in this scenario.
I do think in this scenario, like I think it could work, but I do think the Mavs would probably end up having to give Miami a pick.
Yeah, that was what I was going to bring up. My only change to this is you're probably going to have to throw a pick at somebody.
Just because you're getting Kuminga, and then the Warriors, I mean the Heat would probably want to pick for Jimmy.
Yeah.
So I mean I think I could see them asking, and I wouldn't want the Mavs to give up, or especially the 2025 pick. I mean, if it was the 2031 pick, who cares by that point?
Yeah.
But we may be thinking differently in 2031, but
I'm sure we will be. But for now, it's cool. We'll be good.
Yeah, when you're competing for a title, you gotta really go for it. So overall, I mean, I can see it. I mean, for someone who doesn't spend a lot of time on the trade machine like I have over the last several years, I thought you did a pretty good job putting this one together.
Thanks. It was a migraine for sure.
It always is when it involves more than 2 teams.
Well, I saw the Jimmy Butler thing and I was like, how can we get in on this? So, this is how we get in on it, in my opinion.
As crazy as I have been with some of these trade proposals over the last, let's see, how long have I been doing Mavs media stuff now? I started dabbling in it at the end of 2016. So that's like 8 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I've never, like, as crazy as some of my trade proposals have been over the years, I've never gone more than 3 teams in my trade. It's too much.
Yeah, I couldn't. This was hard enough, in my opinion. This was, but I had like a vision kind of already in place with this. I just had to figure out who fit what. So,
and it's funny too, because sometimes these teams, like, you think it's a simple trade, and then before the trades are finalized, they'll like go back and talk to other teams that did separate transactions, and they'll turn it into multi-team trades to get like cap benefits.
mm-hmm.
Like the Klay Thompson sign and trade ended up being like a 6-team trade or some crazy shit like that.
Yeah, I think it was like a record. Wasn't that like the most teams that have ever been involved in a single trade?
I believe it was. It was crazy.
That is nuts.
So,
but yeah, this is me really just locking in and
the return of Mavs fan favorite Josh Richardson, who shot unbelievably good in that season he had before joining Dallas when he was with the 76ers. Then he came to Dallas and shot like 30% from 3. So,
well, here he probably
opportunity
to shoot it all. So,
just the end of the bench vet minimum player. So, I love the idea of Kuminga in Dallas. I think he'd really pop off.
Oh, he's my favorite. I think Kuminga will be outstanding in that role. And, another question would be, why would Golden State want to get rid of Kuminga? Well, there's been a lot of chatter in years past of them.
There's some turmoil there.
Yeah, exactly. And then, Draymond came out and said one day, I'm going to come off the bench and, we're going to start him because he's next, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, then why are we still reading about stuff about, him potentially being traded? So, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think Kuminga and Steve Kerr have a good relationship at all. I don't care what they say.
Yeah.
If they say they've mended fences and everything, I don't know that they have the best of relationships. And there's been some rumors that Kuminga might be sort of a selfish player. So, you never know. We heard the same things about Kyrie Irving before he came to Dallas, and that turned out pretty good. So,
Well, it's just, let's be honest here. In San Francisco, they don't really have a chance to win the title this year. They don't. Whenever you go somewhere that actually has an actual chance and you're able to be a functional part of that, it means a little more. And whenever he first got to Golden State, did they ever win a title with him?
I can't remember if Kuminga was on that 2020. I think he was. I think he was on
Yes,
that
he was.
2022 team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because see, they got him because everyone got hurt that one year, and then they loaded back. Yeah, he was on that team.
That was his rookie season.
Yeah, exactly. And he had I don't really remember him playing that much on that team, but he had a role. But here in Dallas, you have a legit shot to do something. Maybe that selfishness gets put by the wayside, if there is any at all. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, I know that Kerr can be a difficult person to play for.
Yeah. Well, I like it. I think for a 3-team trade, this is about, this is one of the more rational ones that people can come up with. I've seen some doozies on Mavs Twitter that next time we do one of these, it might have to be sharing fans trade proposals that we see on there, and then we can talk about them because, man, I've seen some just today alone that I'm just like, man, no. What do we think? And then somebody offered trading up Luka for Giannis, and I was like, no, you don't do that. Giannis is like close to 30 now. He's still great. I mean, he's still great and he's in his prime, but I mean, Luka is 25 years old, people. You don't do that.
No.
All right. Trade number 6. This one's a pretty mild one for me, but I was a huge fan of Jarace Walker in that 20, let's see, this was 2024, so it was the 2023 draft.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big Jarace Walker fan. If the Mavs hadn't ended up with Lively, that's who I wanted if he had fallen down to pick number 10. But he didn't. The Indiana Pacers got him. And I don't know. It's just, his role has kind of been suppressed. It's kind of, and I think he has more potential than Josh Green does. But, playing for Rick Carlisle, I've seen what Rick Carlisle can do, to younger players and their confidence. That don't have a lot of experience. And I kind of wonder if that's happening with Jarace Walker in Indiana. And, if that's the case, maybe Nico could talk the Pacers into swapping a young prospect like Jarace Walker, who could, be what we hope Omax turns into. And then, we could give them our project, Omax, who we drafted in the first round of that same draft, plus some extra scoring in Jaden Hardy, who I personally think would flourish in Rick Carlisle's system. So,
if Rick Carlisle gives him a chance, that's my big thing. You're giving them 2 young players, but is your coach going to play them? Is your coach going to utilize them?
I think Rick would actually use Hardy really well. I don't think he'd try and like force him into a point guard type role. I think he'd, put him into the like the backup shooting guard role and let him play alongside TJ McConnell at the point and let him, do his best, what he's best at, catch and shoot. So, I think it could work out well, but again, I don't know what Indiana's thinking as far as Jarace Walker is concerned right now, but I personally would love this trade.
Oh yeah.
So,
he would help us out. Jarace is a very versatile defender. He plugs a lot of the holes that we have as far as, a backup 4 is concerned. And I think he's a little bit further along in his development than Omax is. I think that he helps you win now. I think he's a little bit more solid than Omax is right now. So, yeah, I like this trade, and I think it's fair. I wonder what Rick would do with these 2 players. But, I mean,
like I said, I still have the utmost faith in Omax to develop. I just don't know how long that's going to take on this Mavs team,
Mhm.
getting limited minutes. I do like the way things are trending these last 2 to 3 games, though. If Omax can consistently get 15 minutes a game, then I think you have something going forward, especially meaningful minutes. It's not like, blowout heading into the fourth quarter and he gets to play the whole fourth quarter and cleanup time. These are actual, real NBA minutes that matter, playing alongside Luka and Kyrie and, Derek Lively and all these guys. So if that keeps up, then, the Mavs search for a backup four, is a lot less important than we thought it was a few weeks ago.
Mhm.
So,
No, if Omax can really string together some games on top of what he's already done, our answer is within, honestly, because we're rolling right now, guys. Like, I mean, we're in a good spot. There's like you said earlier, there's no need to trade right now, but we're doing a trade pod. So
yeah,
this is
I'll
our
never forget after that 2023 draft, that summer league, when the Pacers played the Mavs, Omax took it to Jarace Walker. That was
yeah,
a fun thing to see. He dunked on him one time. He had a massive block one time too. So all that's in the past and it's summer league and it doesn't matter. But it was pretty cool to see
yeah.
because Jarace Walker was a top 10 pick and Omax was picked 24th, I believe, in the first round of that draft. So it was pretty cool to see. And again, I still think Omax can get there, but we'll see. We'll see if he keeps getting the minutes to where he can get to that point. All right. Trade number 8. This is another one that's pretty
Uh,
simple, and it's bringing back Derrick Jones Jr. Now, this is one of those that I also put together before before Max started his upward trajectory these last 4 games, because we know, Jason Kidd, it's easier for veterans to get playing time for Jason Kidd than it is for younger players who haven't proven themselves. So before this happened with Omax, um, I was just thinking, well, what if the Mavs got Derrick Jones Jr. back because he was such a great, point of attack defender. He could guard, I wouldn't say he could guard the 5, but he could guard 1 through 4. Very athletic, very good at catching lobs from Luka. Had that chemistry going there. Obviously, his role wouldn't be as big this time around because the Mavs have really found something in Najee Marshall,
yeah.
and PJ Washington has upped his game. He's an all NBA level defender this season. But this is just one I just threw out there and I wanted to get your thoughts on. So you're trading Maxi Kleba, and obviously any trade that involves Maxi Kleba and that extra year, going past this season that's worth $11 million has to have some kind of asset attached to it. So in this one, I've got Maxi Kleba and Omax Prosper going to the Los Angeles Clippers for Derrick Jones Jr. What do you think?
Here's my issue with this. While Derrick Jones Jr. is an excellent defender and a very versatile defender at that, he doesn't check as many boxes as actually getting a true like stretch 4 or small ball 4 is concerned. He's got the length to play the 4, but what happens whenever we go small and we have to have another small ball 5? And yeah, we have PJ, but who's going to back up PJ in that role now? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So while I love Derrick Jones Jr., I would love to see Derrick Jones Jr. back in the Mavs uniform. This trade in particular, I don't know that it hurt. I don't know that it helps us that much, because then in my opinion, we still haven't answered the backup 4 issue.
I really don't know if the Clippers do it. I mean, the Clippers aren't great. Kawhi Leonard's still like he might be cooked, honestly.
Yeah.
Ever since he had to leave Team USA, and he hasn't played any this season, or maybe he maybe played. Did he even play a game this season?
I don't think he has.
Let me go on Basketball Reference and just confirm that. But anyway, with the way things have gone for the Clippers, let's see. He has not played in one game this
I didn't
season
think
so
so.
far.
I didn't think so.
Crazy. So
Yeah.
yeah, he might be cooked. James Harden, although James Harden is really good, he's older now and he's regressing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But the Clippers, their hard-nosed defensive identity, has kept them competitive in the West. So even with all these things going wrong, they're still in that ninth spot and they're competitive in the West. And they're really, even though they're in ninth, they're tied with the Phoenix Suns, who are all the way up at 6. So,
Yep.
you're close to getting out of that play-in spot. And I don't know if they would trade a guy that they viewed as a pretty big unrestricted free agency get in Derrick Jones Jr. for a guy who is a liability in Kleba for the most
Yeah.
part, and an unproven guy who could be better than Derrick Jones Jr. before it's said and done with, but he's not there right now. So
And
I
they're
don't know.
concerned right now with an aging James Harden and a Kawhi Leonard that may never play again. I mean, they want to try to win now, I think. So I don't know that getting rid of Derrick Jones Jr., their best available defender. I don't think that moves the
and,
deal for them
and
either.
he's currently injured right now too, Derrick Jones Jr. So the Mavs, their next 2 games are actually against the Clippers, coming up Thursday and Saturday at American Airlines Center. But I know Derrick Jones Jr. isn't going to be playing in this first one. He might not be playing in the second one either. So his homecoming will have to be put off for another time. But I don't know. I mean, I would be interested in something like this, but obviously I would just love for Omax to continue to get the minutes he's getting and to keep producing in those minutes, gain confidence, and turn into, PJ number 2.
Yeah.
Given his 6'8". I know it says that Omax is 6'8". I feel like he's taller than that.
We saw him face to face. That guy's gigantic. That's
Yeah,
one of the biggest dudes I've ever seen in my life. He's huge.
but yeah, Omax is huge, and if y'all didn't check out our exclusive with Omax from Summer League, we've got that on our channel. Just go back to the late July episodes, and we got to talk with him after one of the Mavs Summer League practices about what he was expecting from his second season, and we've seen it. He's living up to some of those expectations he had for himself now that he's getting an opportunity. So pretty cool stuff there. I know I keep including our guy in in a handful of these trades, but that's why I gave the disclaimer at the start of the pod saying that the Mavs really don't need a trade right now.
Mm-hmm.
But we are just now at the beginning of trade season, and it's going to be like this through, February. So we have to at least think of some ideas because, the Mavs front office is, because they're never content.
Yep.
All right, getting close to the end here. This is another one that I'm not going to spend too much time talking about, but, Patrick Williams, he could be a backup 4. And, the Chicago Bulls are not good at all. And they're probably going to be trading Zach LaVine. They're probably going to be trading Nikola Vucevic if they can trade Vucevic given his contract. So if there's a fire sale in Chicago, maybe you can get Patrick Williams for Maxi Kleba, Dwight Powell, and Jaden Hardy. So I don't really have any strong feelings about Patrick Williams as a backup 4, but when I was looking for backup 4s and going through rosters and everything, he's a guy that kind of stood out to me as a guy the Mavs could potentially get for a reasonable price. So what are your quick thoughts on this trade particularly?
No, he's a solid backup, but let's see. Let's look at this. I mean, he's averaging 9 a game right now. How many minutes is he playing per game?
Patrick Williams, let's see. He is playing 27.5 minutes a game for Chicago.
Yeah, wow. He may give you some pretty okay minutes off the bench, but he's not going to be a game changer by any means. but he is someone that you can plug in at that backup 4 spot.
All of it, when we're looking at the production of all these guys, I just immediately, and I know Maxi's not playing right now, but every time I'm looking at these stats, I'm just like, well, how does this compare to what Maxi's giving? So, from the floor overall, Williams has been awful this season. He's a 46% career shooter, but this season he's shooting 36%. But he is shooting 36% from 3 too. So
serviceable.
Yeah, and he's a 40% free throw. 3-point shooter for his career. So there is something to work with there.
Yeah. I don't know. He may be a guy that is able to do more with less, if that makes sense. He may be able to excel in a lesser role. That being said, I bet you could get him for less. Let's see. He's making 16 million. Yeah, I bet
18 million.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I kind of that graphic is kind of distorted a little bit.
A little bit, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I would give them Jaden Hardy for him, honestly, but maybe that's just because I'm an asshole.
It's like that meme you see going around during trade season. It's like that guy that's got his hands together and he's looking like this, and he's like, "We give you nothing.
Yeah,
you give us your best player."
I mean, that's the thing, though, dude. Like, we don't really need this to happen, so it's take it or leave it, dude. Maxey and Dwight, do you want it or not?
Now, now, with all this being said, we're going to end with an absolute banger here.
Oh, yeah.
And look, take it with a grain of salt. I'm not saying the Mavs should do this. I'm just throwing it out there, giving rumors, speculation, all that stuff, and given this star player's affinity for Dallas, apparently. But there you go. There, three Mavs cat heads. So look, Zion Williamson, we know what he can do when he's actually on the court. I have a theory that, I do think he is an injury prone player. I have a hard time believing he's as injury prone as what he's showing lately, because he, when you see him, these clips of him, he's not around the team, but he's there's clips of him on social media. He looks like he's in pretty decent shape. He doesn't look like he's injured at all. I kind of wonder if he's just ready to get out of New Orleans and he thinks that he's just wasting his time there at this point. So, with that in mind, if you're getting superstar Zion and the production that superstar Zion brings you, then maybe you consider a trade like this. But this is the proposal that I presented here. So the Mavs get Zion Williamson, the Pelicans get Daniel Gafford, Maxi Kleba, Najee Marshall, Jaden Hardy, and a first-round pick. That is a lot to swallow.
Yeah.
But again, it's a risk for a superstar player. Now, I personally think that, depth is the way to go. Obviously, if you have prime Zion and he's healthy, he's going to give you more production than all of these players combined. But it's a yeah.
It's a big if and it's a big but, and I trust Zion's availability about as far as I can throw him. And I'm going to be honest with you, Dalton, I don't think I can throw him very far.
I don't think so either. I think we're past those days.
Yeah. So
our prime football weight room days.
Prime, I don't know that I could throw him. That's a big dude. What I really hate about this, I hate losing Najee Marshall because I love Najee Marshall. I love what Najee Marshall brings.
Yeah, Pelicans let him go. Why are we giving him back?
Yeah, exactly. They need to learn from their mistakes. Also, I know that some people have been down on Gafford here lately. I hate to lose Daniel Gafford, and my reasoning for that is it's so freaking hard to have depth in the post these days. it's such a hard thing to accomplish. And the thing is, I can't remember a time when we've ever had this much depth in the front court. Can you?
No, it's never happened.
No, I like specifically at the
And
5,
see,
I can't remember that. So
and that's why I was hesitant to even do this,
yeah,
even as a proposal. And again, that's why I've been very careful to add disclaimers to all these, because you know how people do. They'll
yeah,
somebody's going to screenshot this and put it on Twitter and say, "Oh, Dalton's saying trade Daniel Gap." No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, given rumors and speculation and everything, this is just an idea to throw out there, because if you're going to take a swing on adding a third star, then this is something that could potentially make sense, because Zion Williamson's value isn't as good as it used to be.
yeah,
And it's kind of like the Kyrie thing. His value was low when the Mavs traded for him. They took a chance on it and it worked out. But what did they have to do? They had to gut their depth for the rest of that season by trading 2 starters to Brooklyn, and they ended up missing the playoffs because of it. So, it's like there's an upside and a downside. You can add another star, but you can hurt your depth and potentially, your standing as a title contender until you replenish that depth at some other point. And I'm going to be honest, it's a lot harder to do in today's NBA CBA collective bargaining agreement than it used to be. You have 3 stars making north of, let's see, Zion's making 36.7 million this year. And then you have Kyrie making 40 million. You have Luka making north of 40 million. That's pretty much your team. And, then you get hard capped and you can't really do anything else. And it gets harder to replenish that depth. You got to look at the veteran minimum bin. And there's really not that many, there's not many Spencer Dinwiddie situations.
no,
Veteran minimum bin.
that's why I just have a really hard time doing this. Because it puts you in a situation now where, and I know there are like small ball situations, but let's go under the premise where it isn't a small ball situation. Let's say we're playing against a team that actually has, bigger fives that they're going to throw at you. Like, let's say that OKC, they have Chet back, or I mean, even Hartenstein. Hartenstein is not a small ball 5, in my opinion. That's a real post player. And that's what do you do then whenever, Derek Lively goes out in foul trouble, which we've seen him be foul prone. Like all young big men are. He is foul prone right now. So I hate the thought of my first post player off the bench being Dwight Powell. It infuriates me. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
And I like Dwight. I do as a person, but he doesn't give you much. Or he's not the threat that either Gafford or Lively are. And I really hate to lose that depth down there, because it's been something that's been an Achilles heel for us before we got Gafford and Lively. That was one of our biggest problems, was our issues at the 5. And I don't know, maybe it's what is it whenever you're having flashbacks? CTE maybe. I don't know, but
Deja vu.
Yeah, it would be. It's like a really negative deja vu. I think that happens when you have brain damage, which is also possible.
Oh, yeah, that's funny.
But anyway, yeah, I don't like the idea of trading away my backup center for someone who may or may not be healthy.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
mean, look, I think Nico is the kind of GM that has the balls to take a risk like that if it was warranted. But, the Mavs aren't as desperate of a team as they were when they made the trade for Kyrie. They desperately needed that second guy next to Luka, and then to fill in the gaps around their star duo. They're not in a situation where they're desperate anymore. So there's really no need to take a risk that big. Now, if you're the Lakers or you're the Warriors, for example, they're in a situation where I think they would take a risk and trade the farm. Or, well, I don't think this is the farm for Dallas in this particular proposal, but I think those other two teams could, the Pelicans could fleece them if they wanted to because they're so desperate. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, I don't think I'd do this, especially with, the momentum the Mavs have going for them right now. Out of every trade we've talked about on this pod, I think the one that I like the most is your Herb Jones trade because it's just so simple. And I had that other one too, but I don't know, man, just, having a Maxey and then just throw in that 2025 first round pick in there. That just, that's just so easy.
So simple, but you and I both know that's not how this is going to go. So,
well, I would settle for my Herb Jones trade. So,
yeah, I'd settle for my 3-way personally, but
that's what she said.
So.
Yeah.
Reese, where you at?
Reese has entered the chat.
Oh no!
Shout out to Reese, man, great guy. Him and Bibbs, they're a good duo of their own talking Mavs. Oh, well, guys, that is going to do it for another episode. We have gone for over an hour talking about trade stuff here. Well, maybe not all trade stuff because we did talk a little bit about that Mavs Warriors game, but this is what we're thinking so far. If something else comes up, I'm sure, as we get into the end of the year and the early weeks of January, there's surely going to be more, trade rumors and speculation coming out. So as that happens, we'll incorporate some of that stuff. I don't know if we'll do just another pod that's just fully trade related until the deadline, when we see what happens. But, we're gonna keep you guys up to date on everything going on with the Mavs in the trade rumor mill. So stay tuned for that. Guys, that's going to do it for another episode. Be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We greatly appreciate it. We're going to be back on here to talk about what happens when the Mavs take on the Clippers, looking to improve their record to 18-9 on the year. We appreciate it, y'all. You'll have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.